the great Tom Holmes. And they're going to be settled in a lot of these states that never thought a thing like this could happen. It's only going to get worse, but we're going to make it better, and we're going to make it better really fast. Kamala is flying them. Think of this. She said, no, you know, about 2 months ago, her and Sleepy Joe, they said, we're really getting killed by this issue, so let's toughen up the border a little bit. All he would have had to do is say, you know, he keeps talking about policy, and Trump told the Congress not to do this, and it's false. All he had to do is one thing. Call up Border Patrol. This is the President of the United States speaking. Close the border, and the border's closed. You don't need a bill. You don't need a bill. But he doesn't want to do that. He doesn't want to do that because they actually want to have open borders. So they had 21 million people come in. I think much more than that, including the Gotaways. But think of this. If you had 4 years of that, you would have 200 million people come in the whole world. The country would be over. It would be finished. It wouldn't be, you wouldn't even have a country anymore. You'd have a crime den. She cannot be allowed to do this to our country. She shouldn't be the one that was chosen anyway, because she is, in fact, by the way they chose her, a threat to democracy. She really is. And just in case you didn't know it, Biden hates her. I believe there is a small possibility, very small, like 1%. There's a 1% possibility that he hates her more than he hates Donald Trump. I think he hates her. The last thing he thought, you know, he won the primary. In all fairness, he won. It was me against him. How about me? I have to run against a guy. I spent $150 million. I had to debate him. I debated the guy. He went way, way down. And I thought it was over. And then it's like a fighter. Then they put a new person in her. And we don't know anything about it. We have to. But now we learned, and now the people are learning, and she's crashing like a rock. Uh-oh, I just thought, just a thought from a very brilliant mind, they might want to put a third person in that. Oh, no. Please be nice to Kamala, to my people, I'm telling you. Everybody that's on the Trump team, be nice to Kamala, because they're going to put a third person in. Let's see, who are they going to
do anything to join that party. even if it means supporting Washington's progressive policies that are hurting South Texas families. That might explain his support for progressive open border policies that flood our communities with violent crime and fentanyl. We can't trust Solomon Ortiz Jr. to secure the border or keep South Texas safe.
Did get this, and I don't believe it can happen. I can't, because the American people ultimately get it right, this smart. But if she ever did, you're gonna have hundreds of millions of people coming in here, and you're not gonna have any, and they're gonna take your house. That woman has a beautiful house over there, I saw it actually. Enjoy it, because you won't have it long. They will take over your house. Just like Venezuela. You know, Venezuela was a very successful country. 20 years ago, it was a rich, beautiful country. It was taken over. And I used to talk about this. I said, if they don't get it right, you'll have Venezuela on steroids, remember? And that's what you're gonna have if you don't vote for Trump. I hate that. But if you vote for Trump, you're gonna have one hell of a great country. We're gonna build it back and fast. Venezuelan illegals are the #2 most resettled population, but they do it through their phone app. And on day one of this Trump administration, you know, if you take a look at Springfield, Ohio, how about that? They have about 50,000 people, no crime, beautiful community, everything nice, schools, everything nice. They dropped in 32,000 people that are really illegal. You know, they did it in such a way that they could make the case. You know, they said they did it through probation. What's probation? They took them in through probation. So I assume they're like prisoners or something, and therefore they're legal. They brought in 32,000 people into a community of 50, a community that was a nice community. And now if you want to go to the hospital, you can't get in. Your children can't get into school. And what they're doing is looking, the mayor is a very nice man. I mean, I think he's nice. He's trying to be nice. He's looking for interpreters because they don't speak the language of you and everybody in this room. It's a totally different language. So they're looking for interpreters. And he's acting like, yes, we're having a hard time hiring interpreters. This community was hit with 32,000 illegal migrants. They have to go back to where they came from, I'm sorry. Springfield, Ohio. On day one of the Trump Organization, when I founded it, it was nice, but now it's great. But I want to get back to the Trump administration, because the Trump administration is going to do things like has really never been done. We're going to clean this thing out. The good thing about this 4-year period, it's a horrible period. It's a shame it happened. It should have never happened. Shouldn't have happened. But they've done so badly that we'll be able to do it, and we'll be able to do it with cheers, because people see how bad it is and how bad it's been run. And that's why there's far more enthusiasm for this move, the greatest movement ever. And by the way, if it wasn't, the fake news would be headlines. Donald Trump lied. When Biden would get up and he'd say, we're going to stop MAGA. We're going to do something about MAGA. Remember with the pink wall, he looked like the devil, right? Remember the pink wall? We're going to stop MAGA. I think it's called MAGA. We're going to stop MAGA. And I said, Joe, it's called Make America Great Again. And he wants to stop it. He wants to stop it. We're going to stop MAGA. But the border will be sealed. The invasion will be stopped. The migrant flights will end, and Kamala's app for illegals will be shut down immediately within 24 hours. All within 24 hours. And you know, I've always had an ability to do a lot of things, so I'm going to do something else on the first day. I'm going to do all of those things. The border, we're going to make it strong very quickly. We're going to get people out that are criminals and horrible people. But we're also going to do something else. Drill, baby, drill. 2 things. On that same day, we will begin the task of finding and deporting every single illegal alien gang member from our country will get them out. This will be a major national undertaking, according to newly published data from ICE, the great patriots of ICE, I call them. These guys are tough as hell, I'll tell you. They should be fighting for Dana White, UFC, ICE. You got to see them. They go in, MS-13, that's another beautiful gang. They're tough as hell. They've taken them out by the thousands. She wants to end ICE. She doesn't want to have ICE. But they informed us that over the last short period of time, 13,099 illegal aliens convicted of murder are at large and dropped into the United States against their wishes, against our Border Patrol's wish, the wishes of our Border Patrol. They would say, please don't do this, please don't do this. Even as the New York Times, which is totally corrupt, I mean, I can't stand that paper. I can't stand them. You know what you do with the Times? When you read a story, just think the opposite. They're the enemy of the people. They really, New York Times is the enemy. Washington Post is the enemy of the people, too. I don't understand it, why? And then they lose credibility. Eventually, they go out of business. I call it the failing New York Times. But even as the New York Times recently reported, the TDA Venezuelan prison gang has, quote, sneaked into the United States among the millions of migrants who have crossed the border and is peddling drugs, guns, and women all across the 50 states, from the urban centers like New York and Chicago to Florida beaches to the once tranquil middle America. It was once tranquil. You were once tranquil. In Colorado, the gang even got a green light to shoot police officers. Did you know that the gang got the okay to kill your police? You know that, right? By the way, that's the New York Times, that's not me. That's the New York Times saying that. They got the green light to kill your police. Just days ago, it was an amazing day. I was in a small town, Prairie du Chien in Wisconsin. You know, we're leading Wisconsin by 4.5 points, too. Right? They have a similar problem. You know, almost all states have this. You know, just so we set it straight, Aurora's got a lot of publicity, but you have states that have a bigger problem than Aurora. You have that people aren't talking about. A lot of the people that run the states, they don't want to talk about it. They want to try and solve it, but they can't because they're not tough enough. You need very tough people like ICE, like military. You need very tough people to solve it. They can't. You know, you'll have a sheriff with 1 or 2 men, and you'll have 25 migrants with weaponry that they haven't even seen in some cases. No, you need help. But they don't want to talk about it because the public relations is so bad for the town or the little city that they run, or the big city. Look at Chicago, look at New York, look at Los Angeles, what's happening to it. In Wisconsin, where last month an illegal alien member of this ruthless gang was arrested for holding a mother and a daughter captive against their will and sexually assaulting them again and again and again. In Houston in June, 12-year-old Jocelyn Nungari was kidnapped, tied up, and assaulted for 2 hours under the bridge before she was murdered by 2 Venezuelan TDAs, these gang members who Kamala Harris had ordered and let into the United States. Totally unvetted. Nobody knew who they were. Totally unvetted. Come on in. You just come on in. In New York City, another gang member recently shot 2 New York City police officers, hitting one in the chest and the other in the leg. They were really, really badly hurt, probably going to make it. And just last week, police arrested over a dozen members of TDA, the Venezuelan gang, who had taken over yet another apartment complex in San Antonio. They're like in the real estate business, like I used to be. Right? They take over a lot of real estate, but they do it by gunpoint. I had to go borrow money. I had to see the banks. This is a wonderful deal. Would you like to? But they just walk in with guns and take it over. It's much quicker. It's a horrible. In San Antonio, and terrorized its residents to a level that they've never seen before. San Antonio police very aptly named their law enforcement effort Operation Aurora, because Aurora was the one that was first and got all that publicity. Operation Aurora. In honor of Jocelyn Nungari, Laken Riley, beautiful Laken, Rachel Morin, and all of the others that are dead, and/or mortally wounded at the hands of migrants who should never have been allowed into our country. I'm announcing today that upon taking office, we will have an Operation Aurora at the federal level. To expedite the removals of these savage gangs, and I will invoke the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. Think of that. 1798, this was put there, 1798, that's a long time ago, right? To target and dismantle every migrant criminal network operating on American soil. Who would have ever thought that a president or a future president would ever have to stand here and say such things? Who would think that that's even possible to have to do? So many things are changed in the last 4 years. But that's the state of our country now after Kamala and Joe Biden have just absolutely destroyed our country. We're a country in tremendous distress. We're a failing country. We're laughed at all over the world. We will send elite squads of ICE, Border Patrol, and federal law enforcement officers to hunt down, arrest, and deport every last illegal alien gang member until there is not a single one left in this country. And if they come back into our country, they will be told it is an automatic 10-year sentence in jail with no possibility of parole. And I'm hereby calling for the death penalty for any migrant that kills an American citizen or a law enforcement officer. With your vote, we will achieve complete and total victory over these sadistic monsters. It's going to go very quickly. Remember our local police? They're great. I know them so well. They've been restricted from operating. They're great. They know everything about every one of them. They say, oh, how will you ever find them? The local police know everyone. They know their middle names. They know their serial numbers, where they live. No, and they want to do their job. They're done. You have no idea how many police officers say, sir, we're going to indemnify them against any prosecutions because they get prosecuted if they do their work. Going to pass that, it'll pass so fast. If they do their job, they get prosecuted by their own people. They get sued by the people that won't take care of the criminals. Some of the DAs that won't do the, think of it, and AGs. They won't go after the criminal, but they'll go after our police officers if they do the job. We will take back our suburbs, we'll take back our cities and towns, and we will take back our country, and we will do it very, very quickly. What Kamala Harris, and remember, I remember when Joe, he didn't want to do it. He was too tired. He didn't want to do it. I like to do it myself. And by the way, how good is J.D. Vance? Is he great? I know JD. JD's going to be saying, sir, let me do it. I want to do it, sir. And if he did it, it would be done right. But I'd say, JD, I want to do it. We'd have an argument over who's going to do it. It'll be done right. But JD was great. He was great the other night exposing that total moron. Man, can you imagine? How about at a debate, a guy calls himself a knucklehead? He says he's a knucklehead. And he is a knucklehead when you get right down. What a team that is. So Joe Biden is considered the worst president in the history of our country. They are considered the worst administration in the history of our country. And the only one that's happy is Jimmy Carter, because by comparison, he looked like a brilliant president, okay? Much better. No, he was much better. What Kamala Harris has done to our border is a crime and an atrocity of the highest order. But even after all of the pain and suffering she's caused, when Kamala was asked this week if she would do anything different than Biden, she choked like a dog. She said, not one thing I would. so she wouldn't have done anything different. Let's take a look at this video.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind.
I stood there on the tarmac watching you check your watch.
The chaotic and deadly U.S. evacuation from Afghanistan stunned Americans and the world and cost the lives of 13 U.S. soldiers.
Would you have done something differently?
There is not a thing that comes to mind.
More than 13,000 illegal immigrants convicted of murder have been caught at the border and then released into the United States.
An Afghan national is in custody today after being accused of plotting an election day terrorist attack. The suspect entered the U.S. on a special immigrant visa.
Gut-wrenching new details in the murder of Georgia nursing student Laken Riley. The illegal immigrant suspect, who cops say committed the heinous murder, is a Venezuelan national who crossed the unsecured southern border back in 2022.
2 men investigators say are in the country illegally from Venezuela are charged with capital murder in the death of Jocelyn Nungaray.
A fifth illegal immigrant accused of attacking 2 New York City police officers over the weekend showed no remorse or regret.
Would you have done something differently?
There is not a thing that comes to mind.
Only 18% say the economy is in excellent or good condition.
U.S. inflation has hit a new 40-year high, increasing by 9.1% over the financial year.
The cost of homes have spiked. Home buyers need to earn 80% more than they did in 2020 to afford a house.
Were you the last person in the room? Yes.
Can you imagine? I watched that, and I said, well, this is going to be a long answer because she's got, she's changed 15 policies. She was in favor of gun confiscation, every single thing that you don't want. 15 times. I said this, and she changed. Nobody's ever, if you change one thing, you're in trouble. She did every single thing, but every single thing she changed, she would end up doing, including banning fracking, which is going to drive up costs, and hence, I'm leading Pennsylvania by a lot. That would be the end of Pennsylvania. That would be the end of Pennsylvania. But that statement, I can't think of a thing I changed from Joe Biden, the worst president ever. She's not going to change. No, she choked. I thought this was going to be a long answer, long, beautiful. The weave. I thought you'd do a weave like Trump does, weave, and then always come back into what you're doing. You need a great memory for that. She doesn't have that. But what she said is disqualifying. If she had any honor, she would drop out of the race right now and resign the vice presidency in disgrace. Because what she has done to the country is unthinkable. It was just announced yesterday that inflation came in substantially higher than expected last month, double what was predicted, with much of the gain coming from food prices going up, rent and housing costs going up, and car prices going through the roof. 4 years ago, when I left office, we had no inflation. We had virtually, think of it, we had no inflation virtually for my whole term, 4 years. We had the greatest economy in the history of our country. We never had an economy